Hunting's been my thing for as long as I can remember. It's one of those old passions that never really fades. After getting married, I didn't go as often, but giving it up completely, that was never gonna happen. My wife didn't mind it too much, as long as I didn't overdo it. Everything was good between us for the most part. I'm not one of those guys who's glued to the couch all day, ignoring my responsibilities. I pitched in with the chores, even cooked dinner a lot of the time. We spent our weekends together, and things felt pretty solid. That said, we had a healthy balance of spending time apart too. I'd head out with friends for a drink, or go hunting for a couple of days. She'd hang out with her own friends. Still, it was clear that I was missing something that day I went hunting. Everything seemed fine, nothing out of the ordinary. My wife helped me pack up. We joked around a bit. "I'll be waiting for you with the loot. Bring me something nice, will you?" she said with a smile. "You know I don't come back empty-handed. Worst case, we'll hit a restaurant together when I get back," I replied. I was heading out hunting with two buddies, Jacob and Matteo. Jacob brought along his friend Dylan. I was cool with the crew. The weather was perfect. What else could you ask for? But that's when things started to get interesting. We'd planned to spend 2 or 3 days in the woods. We knew the area well, had our favorite spots to camp, and we always had our tents. It felt like any other trip, settling down around the campfire after a meal, cracking open a few drinks. And then, out of nowhere, Dylan decided to share something. For some reason, he chose me as his confidant. Why me? I have no idea. What he told me was something I've heard 1,000 times before. Apparently, things between him and his wife had gone cold. They were more like roommates than a married couple. So he'd gotten himself a mistress. They'd once worked together and had to keep it hush-hush. But now that he'd been transferred to a different department, they could be open about it. You wouldn't believe how hot she is. And the best part, she doesn't expect anything from me. She's married too, so it works out perfectly, he told me, looking way too proud of himself. Honestly, I was getting bored with this self-proclaimed ladies' man, but my upbringing stopped me from cutting him off mid-story. And then, Dylan went into this long description of his mistress. It was clear from my expression that I wasn't buying any of it. "Don't believe me?" he asked, clearly sensing my sarcasm. His reaction to my skepticism seemed to push him further. He started fumbling around for his phone, muttering, "I'm going to show you her pictures, and you'll see just how stunning she is." He eventually pulled it out, scrolled through it for a moment, and handed it to me. When I grabbed the phone and glanced at the screen, every emotion hit me at once: anger, shock, confusion, and this bitter, deep sense of betrayal. There, right in front of me, were photos of Olivia, my wife, in a semi-nude state. I was frozen, the phone clenched in my hand, my mind unable to process what I was seeing. I couldn't even hear whatever nonsense Dylan was babbling on about. Before I could even think, the phone flew from my hands and into the fire. Dylan started yelling at me, rushing toward me in a fury, but he ended up crashing into the tent instead. I wasn't about to fight him, but his aggression was hard to ignore. His phone, well, it was clearly beyond saving now. Jacob and Matteo jumped in, pulling him off me, trying to defuse the situation. It took a few moments, but when Dylan finally realized whose wife he'd been messing with, his anger started to fade. "But how was I supposed to know it was your wife?" he stammered, trying to cover up his panic, but it came out sounding pathetic. I told him, with all the calm I could muster, that if he came anywhere near me again, he'd lose more than just his phone. My friend stepped in to take him away, and I spent the rest of the night sitting alone by the fire, my mind spinning. By morning, we packed up and left. After what had just happened, how could I possibly continue with the hunt? When I got home early, Olivia was shocked to see me. "You're back already. What happened?" she asked, clearly not expecting me. "Nothing special," I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. "I just ran into your lover on the hunt, who couldn't stop singing your praises. Her face froze. What are you talking about? This is some kind of joke, right? She replied, completely caught off guard. I wish it were, I said, my words cutting through the tension. But I'm being more honest than I've ever been. She stayed silent, just listening. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke, her voice shaky. So what now? Now, I said, my voice cold and firm. It's over. We're getting a divorce. I don't need a wife like you. Her face twisted in disbelief. Just like that. You're going to erase everything we had, everything we built? She asked, her voice trembling. Yes, I replied. You erased it when you took a lover. Without another word, she went to another room and shut the door. I guess she thought I'd have a change of heart, that I'd feel sorry and back down. But in that moment, all I felt was a cold emptiness. I didn't want to see her or hear her. I just wanted her out of my life. After a few moments, she finally came back out, her voice now quieter, resigned. I'll give you a couple of days to pack up. I'll file for divorce tomorrow, I told her, the weight of it sinking in. There were cries and begging, but by then it didn't matter. I was done. The divorce went through quickly. As expected, Olivia's affair didn't last long after that. Her lover had a family, and the last thing he needed was more complications. There was some tension at work, too, which only made things worse for her. She ended up having to move back to her parents' place in her hometown. With no job and no apartment, she had nowhere else to go. From what I know, her parents weren't thrilled to see her return. So, there you have it. Even the strongest-looking relationships can crumble, and the perfect wife may not be so perfect after all. It's a harsh reminder to keep your eyes open, because sometimes life throws you surprises when you least expect them.